What you sell is much less important than who you sell it to. In B2B marketing, businesses pay money to fix problems or to avoid them in the future. If your team's done a great job of choosing the problem that you really want to focus your business around solving to become the best in the world at solving, then the question is, who is it that's likely to have that problem? In this video blog today, I'll show you how to choose the absolute best market for your business. So who is it that we should be focused on selling to? Well, it's whoever is likely to have the problem that we've chosen. Whatever type of business is most likely to have that problem is the organisation or the type of business we should be targeting. There are some other businesses that we could sell to, but if they're more likely to have a problem that our competitors solve better than us, why would we want to be talking to that market? Really, we want to be talking to the type of buyer more likely to have the problem that we can solve than the problem that our competitors solve. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So start with the target market. Think about the problem and think what kind of businesses are likely to have that problem now or in the future. Don't worry for the moment about whether they actually have the problem. You can fix that by making them aware of the problem. What you can't fix is whether they're ever likely to have the problem at all. You're looking for businesses likely to have that problem. Start with a long list and we'll rationalise it shortly. When you're pulling your list together, let there be overlaps. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're in the business of solving the problem of lack of ability to meet unplanned demand. So you're a resourcing company of some description and you solve that problem, lack of ability to meet unplanned demand. Now let's say that you decide that, hospitals and maybe tourism operators are badly impacted by that problem. But you also decide that small regional businesses are impacted by that problem. Now it's okay that some of these hospitals and tourism operators are also small businesses. You're going to target them for different reasons. It's okay that there's an overlap. So if some of your hospitals and tourism operators get targeted with messages both relating to the fact that they're a hospital or a tourism operator and get targeted with messages relating to the fact that they're a small business, that's perfectly okay. I mean, who knows which of those messages is going to resonate the best? So your target segments don't need to be perfectly separate one from the other. They can overlap a bit. Next, we need to think about role. We often tell salespeople sell high, but I would argue that's not always great advice. If you're telling them to target the CEO of the business, but the CEO doesn't actually have this problem, or maybe they've got it, but there's 43 other problems that are just more pressing for that particular role, then that's the wrong role. The question isn't who will sign the check or sign the order. The question is, who is it in the business most badly impacted by that problem? Because that person will take you to the CEO or whoever signs the check. So we need to find the role most badly impacted, most adversely impacted, most likely to be impacted by the problem that you've chosen within each of those business types. Back to my earlier example, hospitals, tourism, authorities and small businesses. Who is it within each of those types of organisation most likely to be impacted by this inability to meet unplanned demand? Because that's the person who we should be focusing on first. And then we need to address the problem of focus. If you've identified, well, let's say 3 markets, as I did in my example. If you've identified 3 markets, then unless you tell me, I'm going to assume that you're going to give 1/3 of your attention to each of those markets. But you might really mean 40% on hospitals, 40% on tourism operators, and 20% on small regional businesses. Think about the focus. Does it matter? If it does, then you need to be really clear about where your focus lies. Well, I know that each of those businesses are likely to be different. That's why you've identified all of those segments. But is there nothing in common between them? I mean, nothing at all in common between them? Some businesses are just great to target and some are awful. There are some kinds of businesses where your story plays really well and your organisation plays really well, and there are some where that's just not the case. What are the common elements? Think about size, maybe structure, maybe maturity of the business. Could be that you think about factors like their attitude. Companies have attitudes. Companies have cultures that give attitudes. Think about all of the factors that make an ideal client for you to target. Because you want to capture that separately. Maybe, I'll use my example. So we had hospitals and we had tourism operators and we had regional small businesses. Now, each of those businesses, though, have one thing in common. We only want businesses that are bigger than this, smaller than this, maybe of a certain maturity. So capture also in your thinking, what does an ideal client look like, regardless of which segment we get them from? In a moment, I'm going to show you how we do that in Funnel Plan. But let me first do two things. Firstly, I'm going to share with you the conclusion, that is, what do we need to do based on this discussion? And secondly, I'm going to invite you to subscribe to this blog. So let's get to the conclusion first. Well, frankly, it's simple. You need to plan this together. Can you imagine if sales and marketing had a different view of who the target market was? Well, you don't need to imagine. There's a lot of businesses where that's the case. So we need sales and marketing and, frankly, finance and operations to be in the room together and to agree who the target market is. Concretely, do it together. Don't one of you form the view and sell the others on it. Get together, form the view together. Think about the problem, think who most has that problem, and think who you're going to target within that superset. Who's most worthy of focus? That's what you need to do. Well, if you got value out of this blog, then I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to it so that you get the latest updates. There's two ways you can do that. In both cases, you're going to go to mathmarketing.com/blog. That's mathmarketing.com/blog. And you're going to have two options when you get there. Firstly, you can subscribe to the blog itself. Now, the blog comes out twice a week. One video blog and one textual blog. You can also subscribe to Funnel Vision Monthly, which is like an editor's grab. It's the best of. So we choose carefully which of those articles through the month we think you're going to find most interesting, package them up into an editor's grab, and we send that out by email once a month. You can also subscribe to both, frankly, and lots of people do. So go there now, go mathmarketing.com/blog and subscribe to this so you get the latest and greatest that we have to share. Now, I promised I was going to show you how we do this in Funnel Plan, so let's go right to that now. Firstly, here's where it sits in the Funnel Plan. You can see it here on the top right of the Funnel Plan. And there we capture the ideal client profile as well as the segments that we target. In the Funnel Plan software itself, you go to buyer-centric strategy and you choose the target market. Now, within that, we need to choose, as you know, the role and the type of business. So you remember when I was describing how to do this, you actually want to start with the type of business and then the role. So identify each of those, and then the focus. How much of your attention are you going to give to each of those markets? Now, down towards the bottom here, we've got the ideal client profile. Remember, these are the traits or characteristics of the ideal kind of business that you most want to be targeting. Capture it there. Now, this other section that I skipped over a little bit, which is the maturity and these weird percent numbers out here, I'll explain those to you on another day. Headline comment for now. We need at some point to understand how mature each of those target segments will be as they seek to buy a solution. I'll explain why on another day. The other thing I'll explain why on another day is how much of your attention you should give to branding and positioning versus demand generation for each of those target segments. It's a slightly complex conversation, so let's save that for another day. But for now, may your funnels be full and always flowing.